Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Today is 19 May, the year 2003. I'm Dr. Dave Thompson, a volunteer here at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in California. Part of our mission is to record and preserve the history of World War II. In conjunction with the Veterans Oral History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participated in our country's military conflicts. Today I'm here at the museum along with fellow volunteers Betty Matthews and Mary Matthews, and special guests Howard Eddy, John Tier. John's mother was a WASP during World War II, and her name was Shirley Slade. And also here is Ray NEALE. Today we have the honor and privilege of interviewing Vivian Eddy and Mary Lou NEALE. Vivian and Mary Lou were WASP, stationed here in Palm Springs during World War II. By the way, WASP stands for Women's Air Force Service Pilots. So nice to have you ladies here.
Thank you.
Vivian, can you please spell your full name and your maiden name for us and tell us when and where you were born?
Okay, it's Vivian, V-I-V-I-A-N, Cadman, C-A-D-M-A-N, maiden name, and Eddy, E-D-D-Y, married name. I was born in Fullerton, California, June 8th, 1921.
Well preserved, well preserved. What a pretty girl. Mary Lou, how about you? Can you spell your name and what your name and your maiden name for us, please?
Yes, I was Mary Lou Colbert before marriage. C-O-L-B-E-R-T is Colbert, and I married NEALE, N-E-A-L-E. I was born in Juneau, Alaska, and father was in the service, so we traveled. I think I went to many different schools before I finally finished.
And what year or when were you born?
When was I born? October 6, 1914.
Okay.
That's it.
She's my big sister.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning a little bit about your father. What did your father do?
My father was a Rear Admiral, which was director of the Coast and Geodetic Survey. And that, today is called NOAA. You perhaps know it as NOAA. And Coast and Geodetic Survey always had Navy rank, Navy pay. And then the director had the title of being a Rear Admiral. So that is why we get teased a bit about why were you in the Air Force and your father and your husband in the Navy.
So you were in Juneau because your father was
He
stationed there at the time. I see, yeah. Now that would have been, well, about the beginning of World War I, I guess, huh?
Yes,
when he was
well,
there.
World War I was, of course, later, and then we were in New York City. And definitely, they say you can't remember here when you're 2 or 3, but I can remember when the parades came, because we had a hotel we lived in, was right on Fifth Avenue, and the parades came. And
Is that when
the time when my father was missing and mother was crying, I didn't know what was wrong. They reported the plane was sunk, but it was all right after all. These memories, you know, you really can remember way back.
So the parades, would that have been when the boys were coming home?
When they were coming home, that would be 1917, 18.
And your dad, they thought he was lost at sea?
Oh yes, the ship was reported missing.
Oh.
And things like that, I think a child remembers. If the mother's
sure.
crying and they don't know why.
And what was your father's name?
Leo Otis Colbert.
And what was his background, or your ancestors, where did they all come from?
French and Irish. Boston is where he grew up and went to school.
I see. And your mom, what was her name and her maiden name?
Her name was Odu, and she was French and English from Canada.
Oh. And where did they meet?
Where did they meet? Oh, they met in Alaska.
Oh, yeah?
I happen to think they were married in Manila, the Philippines, but they met in Alaska. But then Dad got orders to go to Manila, and so Mother, heavily chaperoned, went all the way out on the ship to meet him and get married in Manila, because he had to be there.
Yeah.
So they were married in 1912.
And what was your mother doing in Alaska when they met?
Her sister was there, and she was married to a doctor, and they were teaching.
And did you have brothers and sisters?
I have one sister.
How was she, about your age?
No, she's about 8 years younger.
Oh, okay. So where did you basically grow up then?
That's interesting. About 6 different grammar schools and 2 different high schools and 1 college. You had to move a lot.
Yeah.
But most of it was around the area of the East Coast, Washington, D.C.
Did you go overseas at all when you were a kid with
The Philippines.
The Philippines. You were there.
That was the only one then.
In Manila, is that where you lived?
Yes.
How old were you at that time?
14, 15, 16 and that.
How did you like that?
Loved it. Those were good times to be, I think, but they were quite short because, you have to go back and go to school. So, went to boarding school then.
Mary Lou, give us a little bit of your background and your family. What was your
Vivian.
father?
She's
I'm sorry,
Vivian.
Vivian. Vivian, what was your dad's name?
He's Walter J. Cadman. He was born in Los Angeles. His mother moved down to Anaheim, where he grew up. He was a pharmacist, went through SC, and finished college by the time he was 22. Didn't bother finishing high school, just applied to SC. And then he came back and was working at a pharmacy in Anaheim and saw this cute lady with her own horse and surrey.
Whoa.
And the men would have to go have a drink when they saw her leg come over the side of the surrey. That was my mom. And he found out who she was and made sure that he got an introduction.
So what kind of work did he do then?
He proposed to my mother, and my grandfather said, well, I don't know what you have for a job. So a year later, he bought the drugstore he was working for and proposed again.
So was he a pharmacist then?
Yeah, and then he sold all the drugstores, and my grandfather went into real estate development. And if you're familiar with Orange County, and Sunny Hills and Fern Drive is named for my mother.
Oh, they were.
So if you're ever in that Fullerton area,
Yeah.
that's where I was born and raised.
And your mom's maiden name? Or?
Corcoran, she was Irish.
She was Irish, yeah. And their, do you know where their ancestors came from, or how did they end up in California?
Actually, I haven't any. My mother's mother was a Royer, and they were, I think, French Huguenot, Royer,
Yeah.
and they came over in a covered wagon to Los Angeles, and her family had a hotel in Los Angeles. And then my grandfather, Robert Corcoran, came from Chicago, and that's all I really know, except there's a big Corcoran County in Ireland, and that's as far back as I could go with that. But he was very Irish and made a lot of money.
And did you have brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother and a younger sister and a baby sister.
And how was it like growing up in Los Angeles or in Orange County in those days?
Oh no, Fullerton. I was never
Fullerton.
near Los Angeles.
Okay, Fullerton.
I was raised on a 5-acre ranch and had my own horse, and I guess I was a poor little girl.
Yes. Well, you did, so the Depression didn't really bother your
Oh,
family?
we knew that. We knew there was a depression because my mother wouldn't buy butter. We had to eat avocados on our toast. Okay?
Sad story.
And then somebody said, I'd served avocado for breakfast, and they said, ooh, what an expensive idea. And I said, oh no, this is out of the Depression. We'd go pick one off the trees, you see.
So you had horses? You had horses, did you say?
We had a horse.
What kind was it?
It was Lady Jane, and she was just one of those good family horses. She wasn't any show horse. You could ride her bareback. She'd pull a plow, but we didn't plow. We used tractors. She would pull a little surrey. We could take her downtown, and always had her in the parades. She was a sweetheart, part of the family.
And where did you go to
School.
grammar school and high school?
Right there in Fullerton.
What was the name of the?
Ford Avenue, and they've torn it down. They should never have torn down my grammar school. And then Fullerton Union High School. And we didn't have a junior high. It was called 7th and 8th grade, and it was in Wilshire Avenue.
Okay. And then where at the high school?
Fullerton Union High School.
Okay.
And then 2 years of junior college, and transferred to University of California as a junior, and I was there in 1941, and I finished that year and got into the WASP as fast as I could.
Right off the bat.
No, I quit school and went to work for the Air Force because I knew they would. I was a pilot, civilian pilot training. You did that too.
What were some of the things you did while you were in high school?
I wrote plays and then I starred myself in them.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
And I danced, and I did manage to always maintain good grades. Not spectacular, but I didn't study either. So
Did you have an interest in flying in those days?
from the time I was 9 years old, and my step grandfather in Los Angeles took me to the air race, and I saw those ladies.
At LA,
LA area, yeah.
LAX, it was called, what's called Mines Field
Yeah,
then?
yeah, the air races.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about an air race. I mean, it's hard to kind of imagine. What would they do?
Well, they had started on the East Coast and would fly in. You'd be there for their landing, and
Oh, okay, this would be like a cross country, and they were
and
there
then
for their
some.
landing.
Actually, I just was so fascinated with flying that I had no idea where they had come from or where they were going. I just liked the noise.
But sometimes then they have kind of
Yeah,
short,
yeah, hangar,
kind of short, where they would
Yeah.
do circuits around the
pylon.
pylon kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, gee. Do you remember some of the names of the lady
I'm sure.
pilots in
I'm
those?
sure I saw Jackie and Amelia. I'm sure that Jackie particularly. I know that.
You did.
I'm sure I did.
Mary Lou, tell me a little bit about you were in high school in Manila, in the Philippines, I suppose.
Yes.
What did you like about school, or what were some of the things that you did at school?
Some of the things I did at school?
Yeah.
Well, of course, the Philippines was a complete change. And I had a very interesting experience. The only high school that a college would accept the credits for was this one where your father had to be an American. And so that meant that I went to school with what we call mestizos. And they were wonderful. And that was my first chance to see what it was like with a cross culture. And first they kept to themselves, but then they became best friends. And I found it was really a wonderful education. More than what was at the desk was the living and the getting to know each other and things like that. And you see, this was before the war, before they were taken over, so it was a totally different world. Americans, of course, the big kingpin, but we didn't act that way in Manila. It wasn't necessary. There was a culture there that was Spanish, that had been handed down, and it was delightful and understandable too. They were a little bit harsh at first, they thought, but no, when they became more gathered, there was a culture that was an interesting thing. I think I learned more then than I did later in boarding school, where I went to a good one. And that meant you had to stay in and you had to study longer, because there you were, they had you. But I felt that was a very good thing. I've always liked the idea of travel, to find out things like that.
They were probably waiting to react to the way that you acted towards them, I would imagine, before they really warmed up to you. Probably.
Well, I think so. We were grossly outnumbered, but that was, maybe they felt sorry for us. But it was very, very nice, I thought, because of that. But there was still that intermarriage, which is the walled city. And that was a very different world. That was like stepping back into medieval times. And to learn these things was quite interesting.
But you felt safe, like going into that?
No.
Oh, you didn't?
No, you wouldn't be safe.
Wouldn't go
You
there.
knew enough.
Oh.
You learned that definitely. But it was an interesting time. I think Dad was only a lieutenant at that time, and yet we could have 7 servants, you see. So you learned something from them. They would tell you not to go here or there, or not to be alone, because they're all different kinds of people.
So did you graduate from high school back here in the States?
Yes, I graduated from Georgetown, and then went on to Wellesley,
Okay.
which was another shock, completely different. You just seem like you're moving all the time. You're the new one
You're
in
always
class.
a new kid.
So you graduated from Georgetown High School? Is that-
Yes.
Yeah, that was in Washington?
It was a convent school. It was a boarding school,
Oh.
right by the university there.
By the
It was all
University of
girls.
Georgia, right
Always
outside
went
of
to
DC, in
all-girls
DC.
school. You must have had more fun than I
I
did.
did have fun. Always chased us.
But
So did you have nuns for?
Yes, yes.
What order did you have?
I was going to say Dominican visitation. The funniest thing about it is I married someone who was a great nephew of the one that started that order, the Jesuit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the NEALEs came in the early age, so he had started Georgetown. Then he decided that they should have a women's education too, so at the side they had the convent that was just for young ladies. And that's indeed what we were. And then I went to a girls' college, so...
Now Wellesley is that in Massachusetts? Where is that?
Boston.
Boston.
Outside of Boston.
And how was it? What were you, did you have a major? What were you studying?
Major was English comp. I've done a lot of writing, of course.
She's good.
I do writing a lot
She's
of,
good.
and books and things. Well, I'm afraid I chose it because I was a little mentally lazy. For English literature, you had to read all these things, memorize all these plays, all these poems.
You took the easy way out.
Yeah, I took the easy way out.
That's what I did.
With English comp, you could write what you want. Nobody could say anything. This is
Yeah.
what I wrote. This is original.
So what year did you graduate from high school then?
From high school, let's see, that would have to be 31, because 35 was college year.
Okay, and you graduated from Wellesley in
Yes.
35 then, and then what did you do after that?
I had a wonderful job. I worked in the Library of Congress. Every time you mention that, I
Yeah.
cringe again, because the people who work in the Library of Congress never leave. So the ceiling is right here. And you stay about 2 years, and you're doing the same thing. It was a fascinating place.
Oh, I was
Had
back there.
everything. Have you been there?
Just went back actually for this last year. The museum sent me back there. Library of Congress is getting involved in doing these interviews,
Yes,
which
I
we've been
know.
doing for some time
It's
ourselves. And so it was really. I went into the library itself, and it was just.
Isn't it?
Oh, it was just wonderful.
They've got everything.
They do, absolutely. There were 2 books that I remembered I read when I was a kid. I lived out in the country and we didn't have much, and I had there were about 8 books, and I just read them over and over and over again. One was called Barry Blake of the Flying Fortress, and he was
Flying Fortress,
the
B-17?
even B-17 over in,
Yeah,
I never heard of
I never heard of it.
it was over in.
Had to be
in-
over
in-
What was it? Was his true story?
No.
Oh no, is it?
But it was quite similar to what was going on
What
with
was
Cole
really
and Kelly
happening.
and all these kind of guys, you
Good.
know. And so I just loved that book, and I read it over and over again. Then never saw it. And so when I happened to be back there, I went into and I went over and I said, "Gosh, I wonder if they have that book." And sure enough, they did. And you put your card down on the desk. They said, "Come back in an hour." You come back and the book's there. And
Oh.
so I read it.
You
read
can
it again.
imagine working there.
I hope you own one by this time.
No, I still haven't. I've been going on eBay looking for one, but I haven't found one yet.
You will.
I probably will. So you were there for a couple of years. And
I
then,
stayed a couple of years, and then I got restless, and there was a chance to work for a newspaper, and that was exciting. And I loved that.
in Washington?
Yes. Yeah.
What paper?
It was the Times Herald at the time.
And what did you write for it or?
Yes. They had known me. Well, I was a little bit, I hate to say it this way, but a little bit well known because of a few
Daddy.
breaks. They chose me to be Queen of the President's Cup Regatta, so I got to know all the people. And Washington was a small town. So I said, well, what's the best newspaper to work for? And they thought the Times Herald was. So I went there and found I had some friends there. And I knew people, so they made me the social editor. But that was pretty dull. And I thought I wanted to, some movie came out. It was very exciting about this lady, a reporter, and she had all these exciting things happen to her. So I thought for that, and they said, no, you're too young, you can be in the library. So back I am in the library, which they call the morgue, the newspaper language, which is what it was like.
Right.
So then I went to New York, because all my classmates said, oh, come up to New York, there are wonderful jobs in department stores. So, with all that education, I sold handkerchiefs. But it was fun. Everybody was young then in New York, and the Depression had really taken its toll. Graduates from good colleges were just taking any job they could get, and it made a lot of difference. You know, you had to have something.
Did you work
I
at
think
Macy's?
my grand
Did you work at
salary
Macy's?
something like $18 a week,
Yeah, oh yeah, that was.
and we lived in little all-girls boarding schools.
Yeah,
Everything
there.
was just so, but it was a wonderful experience.
18 a week was pretty good.
Was that good?
Yeah.
18.50, maybe 50 cents.
Well, I made 12 and a half working for a realtor.
Oh.
Did you work at Macy's or what department store did you work at?
Bonwit Taylor's mostly, and that I thought was quite I had friends there that got me, and I didn't have the great sales ability they did, but people I'd gone to school with, so I learned a lot.
Did you have an interest in flying in those days?
Actually, I did. I just loved the idea of being able to get up in the air, and I think it was when I was at Wellesley one time, we went bicycling, you always bicycle, and this chap was taking people around for rides, and everybody sort of was afraid of it, and he wasn't making any money, so he said, all right, for free. So I said, all right.
And you'd go.
I did.
You
And we
bet.
did aerobatics, and I said, oh, it's such fun. So then they all lined up, and he was very grateful that I'd liked it. But I fell in love with flying, but it was out of the usual pocketbook of anything
Oh, it's
you earned in those
expensive.
days. You just, until
Oh, yeah.
CPT came
Until
along.
CPT.
You had it too.
I had CPT.
You know what CPT is?
No.
Oh.
Civilian Pilot Training Program.
But in the colleges, it was a college program, but not college credit.
Yeah.
It was 5 units,
Yes.
but you didn't,
No.
Get
I think
accepted.
pretty much all the pilots went
Yeah.
through that.
Juicy, uh-huh.
where
Well,
Well, they knew the war was
Yeah,
coming, and they
yeah.
knew that we were
Short
way
of-
behind
short of pilots.
in aviation entirely. So they would take you up through primary, secondary, and aerobatic, and then a commercial. But I didn't finish because you didn't either, did you? By the time I would have been, the last of it, they said no more women, because war was imminent.
Yeah.
And young men who would have been really
Oh, I didn't know that.
walking decided, oh no, we want to be aviators. So everybody was rushing to get in that CPT
Yeah,
program.
yeah, I'm sure.
I was turned down for advanced because
What?
the instructor, you don't have enough beef.
Be-
Not strong enough.
That's wrong.
I was,
Vivian, when did you first fly or go up in a plane?
That was civilian pilot training.
Oh, that's when.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, I
we
was,
heard about it. It was
I
it
was-
was
I was-
great if you wanted to fly.
So now,
I was 19 and you had to get your parents' signature. Were you 21?
Yes,
yeah, see,
yes.
I had
was
to get
out
my
of
parents'
school. I was
signature.
now did
24.
both of you go into that prior to December 7th?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, you had.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's
Well,
okay. Let's go.
prior.
Let's go back to. Let's go back.
1940 was my year.
My license is 41.
41.
Yeah.
And then they said no more women because they could
I didn't
see
know
we were
that.
going to get.
I
Oh,
didn't
that's
know
why they.
We were
Oh,
lucky.
but you know where we got in the first place?
No.
I wrote a letter to Eleanor Roosevelt. I really did. Well, I knew her, you see. Washington, you
Yeah.
do. And they started the CPT program, and having worked for the government, I knew everybody. So they said, oh, did you hear what's going to happen? They're going to have this wonderful program. So I asked about it, and they said, men only. So I told her, she had teas every once in a while. And see, her children and I went to the same schools a lot. So I told her about it. She said, well, that's not right. Next thing I
didn't know
knew, they
that.
said 1 girl for every 10 boys.
I didn't know
Weren't you one
that.
for 10?
I was the only girl in the class of 48 boys.
Yeah. So they did that. They allowed us in because they just thought it was reasonable. I mean, girls can do what other people can do. For heaven's sakes. It's just a plane. It doesn't know what sex you are. So that, she really saved it for
I'm
all of
glad
us.
you did that. I didn't know that.
Oh, yes, that's my favorite story because it really did so happen. Exactly like that.
So where did you start your training then?
Then I started out at the field right outside of Washington, excuse me, in Maryland. And I had an instructor that had had bad luck with females, and because he had this one that got quite hysterical on him. And so he didn't like that very much, and it turned out to be the man that's my husband now. He changed his mind.
It's fine.
No, he thought, oh no, that another emotional female, you know.
When did you get married, by the way?
We got married in '46 when he came back from the Pacific.
So that first training period, how long did that last then?
Now, you're talking about the CPT or in the
CPT.
service?
I'm talking about CPT.
Oh, the CPT was over when I had less than 300 hours. You had to have 300 for a commercial, and I wanted to get that, and I wanted to teach flying. So that went on for about a year. And then finally, Jackie got the go-ahead to start our group. And I was right there on her doorstep waiting for her to say, okay, we are now starting to train women. And that's what both Viv and I were in.
Okay, now this was, what year was this then? When-
That would be
when Jack-
19, that was it was
40.
after, yeah.
42.
Okay,
42,
this
but
is-
it was
oh,
after.
Okay, well, okay.
December
what
42 you started.
Yeah, Okay, let's, I want to kind of hold it right there, and I want to go with Mary Lou.
41 was
When did you...
Vivian.
Vivian, yeah, when did you start your CPT?
At Fullerton Junior College in my sophomore year, and it was 1940. I started in the fall of
Yeah.
40,
that
and I got my license April of 41, and then December 7th of 41. And I wanted to continue and take more advanced, and
They
that
said
that
no
was,
more women.
well, no, he said he wasn't going to take me because I didn't have enough beef.
That isn't true. He just was being mean.
Okay, tell me, what do you
That's
recall
true.
what you were doing on December 7th?
Yes, I was
Oh.
a junior up at Cal, and it was Sunday morning, and the guy that I dated the night before came over and banged on my apartment door, and he says, get up, we're at war. I'll
And
never
what-
forget.
And was that were you surprised, or could you
Yes.
see it coming, or?
Oh, God, it was a real shock.
Not
Sunday
for me.
morning.
Not for
Mary,
me.
yeah, Mary Lou, what were you doing on December 7th?
Well, we were at the Army-Navy Town Club, Washington, D.C. It was quite interesting. Well, the really interesting part was this aunt of mine. We call it Calabash Aunt. It was your mother's best friend, but you're not really related. She was from Manila, and she'd been with us, and she left December 1st. And I was going to go with her to see my old friends from high school, and Dad said, I think you should wait till after Christmas. And that was the 7th he came. So it really hit us pretty hard. But some of the people, like in Dad's position, had warnings. But, you know, you couldn't be sure.
You really wondered. You
Yeah.
really wondered.
You couldn't be sure. And of course, I don't think any of them really expected it
To happen
to
like
be
that.
Hawaii. They were
To happen
thinking
like
it would happen in the Philippines. They were closer.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well,
And
course
that's
they-
where she was going home to.
right, and
And
they
he thought
actually,
I'd be there.
they had planned to hit Clark Field at the very same time they hit
Oh.
Pearl, and
Mm.
the weather was bad coming out of Formosa, so they were a few hours late
They
getting
had
there.
to do it.
Boy.
Yeah, in those Life magazines, that's where I like to have them up here. You can learn so much
Mhm.
about, and because when I'm reading these magazines, and we got one that's is December 8th, 1941, it has MacArthur on the cover. Of course, it was printed, you know, a few days before because it hadn't come out in circulation. But the article is, if war comes in the East, MacArthur will lead us. Or if war comes with Japan, he will be the one to lead us. And this was before we actually, so you could, I think they knew it was going to happen, but I think the shock was that they hit
When?
well, not that so much when, as where.
Where?
They didn't expect them to ever hit the Hawaii,
The way they
I
did.
mean, Pearl Harbor, I think. I think like you, they thought it'd be more around the Philippines or hit the British or the Dutch or
It was a
something
terrible
like that.
shock.
Yeah.
Terrible shock.
So,
So I didn't go back for my reunion.
I went ahead and finished that junior year,
okay.
and I couldn't wait to, and I thought I've got to complete the year at least. Went back home where the Air Force had started the West Coast Training Center, and Santa Ana's where they inducted all their cadets. And I walked in and got a job as a secretary, and I can't even type, but they hired me anyway. And that's where I was, and I said they were going to hire women, and I was hired in early 43. I went to Sweetwater in 43.
Okay. And how did you, now you mentioned that Jackie Cochran
Mhm.
started,
Jackie
got this.
had now started it.
How did she get it all, the ball rolling and all this stuff?
Well, she, first of all, she started by, General Oil didn't want women at the time. He didn't think he needed them. He's apologized for that. But he did later.
Who did?
General Arnold.
Oh, Hap
he was-
Arnold,
yeah,
yes, right, okay.
Yes. And so she was told, he thought it'd be good too for the experience to get a group together and take them to England. So she did that.
She was there.
She was there. Then it was time. They needed us very much. So they started, she came back to start the WASP. Except we were WAPs first because our first duty was just, well, she presented it, or was presented to her. There are all these airplanes stacked up at the factories because the factories are working overtime. They're not getting to where they need to be, which would be places for training the young men that were going to be.
The trainers were.
And so, all kinds. So they immediately thought we need more ferry pilots. So that's what we started out by being. And so we went down to, she had her first school in Houston, Texas.
And you were there.
And I was there. Then they had 3 schools there. Actually, we're the only one that went all the way through and graduated there because it was too small an area, too confined. And they were setting up this other school at Sweetwater, which is where Viv went. So then they moved all the school down to Sweetwater. So my class was the only class that graduated actually from Houston. The rest of them from then on, they were Sweetwater.
Didn't 43-4 fly their airplanes up? Were you around? Yeah. They flew all their own trainers up to Sweetwater and then graduated up there.
Now, where is Sweetwater?
Where is Texas?
The middle of Texas.
In the middle of Texas. In the middle of nowhere.
It's hard to find.
So, okay, they were training to be ferry pilots. Just describe that. What's the idea behind
Learn to
that?
fly anything.
What do you mean? What's
Well, I mean, okay, you learned to fly planes.
Yes.
What did you do with them? I mean, when you were flying
Oh,
them?
well, they needed us to take them, as I said, from the factories to the training bases. Now, training bases were popping up all over the place,
Oh,
especially Texas, California,
California had them all down
Arizona.
the coast.
And they really needed them because we really knew now we were serious about going in, not just pretending to be.
We could fly.
And, yeah.
Proved it.
So there was lots of work to be done. Okay, then we ferried. You were always ferry command, weren't you?
Yep,
When
always.
did they start changing?
The ferry command eventually had all the pilots they needed. That's when the big flap came about the men getting rid of us. So then they started sending them to training schools and tow target schools.
Mhm.
And,
Okay,
right.
tell me what your training was down at Sweetwater or wherever you did your training. What's that like?
Oh, well, we marched. We were treated like military, weren't we?
Uh-huh.
And you had
Lived in barracks.
did you have men
I
training you or women or
Men instructors.
Oh,
men instructors? Yeah.
yeah. Well, the first class was real super secret
Yes, you
because
were.
it might not have worked.
Yes, you were. They were an experiment.
So we
Oh, I see.
were told to pretend we were something else.
That's right. You were an
So we
experiment.
picked on being a girls' basketball team. And that
And
was
you
a
lived
little
downtown.
odd because I was.
Didn't you
know,
live downtown? in
Yeah, I
Houston?
lived
Yeah.
in Oviedo.
We lived in
Pub.
barracks.
How many girls were there in
In
that
my
first
class?
class?
25 applied, 23 graduated. We didn't have to do any marching. We didn't have to live in barracks. We just went and found our own place to live. So we went and saw this beautiful mansion that belonged to a Vita called Bobby. Said, that looks nice. 4 of us who knew each other came down from Washington and turned out to be a young ladies boarding. If they worked for the war effort, it was for a young ladies boarding house. And it was delightful. We enjoyed it thoroughly. So we did not have much discipline, but I think you got it there.
We did.
Because we were experimenting.
You were the
If
experiment.
we hadn't worked, that was all. Just don't tell anybody. It did work, and we went out to fly. And so, I gave birth to you. It was great.
What was the discipline like for you?
And she had
Oh,
more.
we were strictly military, and you
Mhm.
were not allowed to leave the base.
They had uniforms?
We wore, yeah, well, they didn't have a real uniform.
That's right.
They found some old flight suits, and they're great big coveralls. We just cinched them in, and then you bought your own brown khaki pants and bought a white shirt. That was your uniform. And then the little overseas cap, a khaki overseas
Still
cap.
doing that? Fine.
Oh, we sure were. With that, you see in that picture of me on the color guard. There I am in khaki
That's right.
pants. Uh-huh.
Speaking of uniforms, you've got your blouse on
She
This,
said
there.
this is
turns.
what we have when it finally was ordered. This and the pants were the same color, black shoes. And a
This is
little-
when like you got your wings or
Oh no,
Yeah.
you'd already been flying for a year before these
oh,
came out.
before even those
Yeah,
came out.
we were
This
down
is
in
my class wing. It
yeah,
isn't good to
yeah,
boil.
that's your class. But we were in Dallas before they ever fitted us with these.
Oh, those are
Oh,
pretty, those
yes.
pretty sharp looking.
We did
They were
look.
cute.
They
Jackie picked out the color. It
Did
looked
she?
good with the blonde's hair, you know.
And your ribbons there stand for?
We
what's
had the
Amer-
2 ribbons. It was just
American Defense.
Victory Medal. What was it? American Theater. We weren't allowed out of the country.
No.
Although we did take a few planes up to Canada.
That's it.
Which that was it. So it, we could even go to Alaska, could we?
No, they wouldn't let us up to
It was
Alaska.
terrible.
Uh,
So that was what.
Tell me some of the planes that you, what were the first planes that you trained on? And then a little bit about
Well,
'Cause
the
I know
little
you.
cub is what we all start out in the beginning, and then
And PT
then the
Fairchild,
Fairchild, beautiful plane. You could do acrobatics, aerobatics, and then
BT,
that was fun. Basic trainer, then advanced trainer,
86s,
86s.
and then the flying bamboo,
I like
the
that
Cessna,
one,
the
the
twin
Cessna.
engine.
Oh, Cessna.
So we got quite a few of them.
That was in
They
school.
was all training.
That was in school.
Yeah.
Then it depended on where you were stationed, what you flew.
That's right.
Because some of the girls who were stationed in New Jersey, all they did was fly that P-47, that big one out there.
Yeah.
Where we were so lucky, I think, at
Dallas, and Palm
Dallas
Springs.
and Palm Springs to be sent. Well, sometimes you'd cross the country about 3 times a week, as you'd
Really?
take things from here to be sent, to be shipped over, really. They didn't fly pursuits across the ocean after their
Yeah.
first,
No.
some not such good experiments. And so then you'd come back, go back again. We could only fly in daytime hours, so that
No
cut
weather,
down,
no bad weather.
except when it just plain happened.
Yeah.
You said, oh, this is not good. But that's our job, was ferrying, and we were very busy. And often we didn't get home for a long, long time. And because you'd go someplace, let's say, go up north and take this plane from, was it Niagara Falls,
Well,
down to Florida, where they're training. And
Well, the one I remember is the P-51s back to Newark. They'd put you on a night train over to Buffalo. You'd get a 63 and take it to Great Falls,
Great
Montana.
Falls.
And a C-47 was waiting. You'd take you back to Palm Springs.
Yeah.
But you'd go wash out your undies, get on the plane the next morning, back over to
Exactly.
Mines Field.
Exactly.
I call it the milk run.
Gus Swain, who's a great cartoonist, had this wonderful cartoon of us, a ferry pilot. After a little year, we just worn out, same clothes on. It was quite an interesting time.
Tell me a little bit about some of your more exciting times up there, weather and this kind of thing that you can recall.
Well,
Or
you're
or
kind of an
you-
idiot if you let weather catch you, but I guess each one of them had their idiot time. Sometimes you're trying to get someplace so much you push it a little, teaches you a lesson, doesn't it?
Well, and what you'd have to sit there is so frustrated.
Yeah.
Weathered in for 5 days in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, that and Newark is just 45 minutes away, and you can't get out. You can't
Mhm.
get your airplane over there.
Oh.
So
And then the
things
sun
like that.
comes out and everybody comes.
Oh, you almost kill each other getting the airplanes out there.
The sheriff flies his tower says,
Uh-huh.
every man for himself.
Which planes were the most difficult for you to handle?
I can't think of any. I love 51s. And
That 51 was beautiful.
It was our
I like
favorite.
it too.
Anybody who flew it was their favorite. And I like 63s.
You-
And you like 38. She flew a P-38.
Yeah.
I know
Did
that.
you?
Well, the 38 came out late in time, and really the thing about it is that he had 2 engines.
Yeah.
So if one
Yeah.
quit beside the other one. But you see, when I'm with the 51 group, I say the 51's my favorite. I'm in the 38, say, well, the 38's my
38's
favorite. You have to be tactful.
Yeah. You ever have any rough landings, blow a tire or anything like that?
You can't help it.
I had a very funny story to tell you. I'd taken a 51 into Midland, Texas, and I'd been told when I left the factory that it was heavy with camera equipment. It was P-51D, and it had the camera in the back, and it was going to land a lot heavier. I came over the end of the runway at Midland, and there were workmen. And I thought, I've got to stay high enough, I got to stay high enough, and then I'm over those guys, and so now it's time to get it down on the ground. Oh, I'm going to run out of runway if I don't get this down on the ground. So I just dropped it. And I had also been told never, ever correct a bounce with throttle in a 51. The torque was so great. I corrected with throttle. Now, torque, ever
So you were down.
huh?
You were down.
Oh, it bounced, honey.
Oh,
Bad,
it bounced.
bad,
Oh.
bad. So I put on the throttle, and now
Yes.
it tore off to the left. You know what torque is? It's opposite reaction to the propeller turning right. So now I'm way over in the tules in the left. I just pulled everything back and rode it out. And I'm over there in the tule brushes. Well,
Where?
at Midland,
Midland. Okay.
right off the runway. So now I see the taxi strip up there. Why go back on the runway? So I just taxi through the rest of the weeds. Now, 3 Navy pilots are ferrying, and they follow me through the weeds. They think I know. They'd never been in there before. And I parked that airplane. They parked beside me, and I kept the hood up. And you should have heard their language to each other. And so then I popped the hood and I said, "Good afternoon, gentlemen," and it's a girl.
I meant to ask you that. I'm sure there was a lot of times you went into an airport or for the first time, and when you jumped out and they saw you were a girl, they must have really been surprised.
They went to pieces. And I love Port Columbus and Navy because they weren't used to us.
No one was used to us. They all were surprised.
But needless to
We
say, those guys
celebrated.
took me to dinner and we were friends. Oh, and the first thing, the Air Force ops officer came out, he inspected that airplane. "What are you doing?" And I'm sorry. It was an accident. And there wasn't a scratch on it. And I just took it on to Newark. I was lucky.
Lucky you.
So did both of you end up here in Palm Springs at the same time?
Yeah.
We started the base.
Oh,
We
you
came
did?
out,
We started.
our CO was sick, Mary Lou was exec, and I was operations, and we drove our CO's car out,
Yes.
Who
and
was
we
your
opened the base.
Yes.
Who was your CO?
Bird
She was
Ranger,
sick.
She's sick, yeah. She's gone now.
So we started it all. We had a good
Mary
time.
Lou.
But I also had a P-51 incident.
What'd you do, as bad
Okay.
as mine?
Well, it was a little bit worse.
Worse than mine?
Yeah, 51s we loved, so, you know, we flew more.
We flew
Something's gonna happen anyhow. Sometimes it's pilot error, as I say, you push. And are we talking too long? I see you looking.
No. I'm just
All right.
looking
So
at your
this
beautiful
was a very
faces over there.
mysterious one, but I was going to keep it for my book, but I've been telling it too. I took off from, where was it going? Dallas to Newark. That was the usual run.
Yeah, we took them all to Newark to get
Yeah.
shipped.
So usually you had to land someplace, so I landed where they had this great big airport in North Carolina, and I had no brakes. I am speeding down this thing with just no brakes. Scared me to death. Because it came in, you come in over the fence, about 100, you drop it down to
110
90,
over the fence.
110, but it gets to 90 when you hit the ground. Well, I was 90, and then you put on the brakes pretty hard. Well, there were no brakes. So I went, and fortunately it was the biggest airport. I was just so lucky to pick it. All the way at the end, and then there was a big way you couldn't turn around. Came back down the taxi strip. Tower said, "B-51, are you having a little trouble?" You know. So I was mortified because I thought it was my fault. I think that's our general thing. If anything happens,
First
it's
of
your
all, it's a
fault.
brand new airplane. What could
Because-
be wrong?
Well, what could be wrong is what happens when we took off from Dallas. There'd be a line of P-38s, so they're going like this all the way out to take off. You're riding the brakes constantly,
True.
and you burn the brakes out. So I just thought, oh, I overdid it. I burned the brakes out. I'm just lucky to be alive, and I don't know why, because you wouldn't know till you made your first landing. So they said, oh, don't worry about it. You know, somebody's going to come and examine it. Well, they came and they examined that it had been sabotaged. So from being a villain, I was suddenly a heroine. And they showed me out and facing the little brake thing somebody had taken, punched a hole in it. So all the time I'm
Your
flying
fluid is
happily
out.
from Dallas to Carolina, this thing is dripping
Your
out
fluid is
out.
that wonderful pink fluid that we relied on. So it really did so happen because I was interviewed by FBI and they told me to go home and have a couple of days with the family in Washington. I thought, that's a nice reward.
Gee.
So they found out that there was that. We don't know why. We did run into other things of sabotage. Whether some disgruntled factory employee, nobody who did this would know that a girl was going to fly it
No.
because, you know, you just pick up any phone. Or just somebody mad at something, or poor workmanship. You know, you don't know. But they,
Was this out of Palm Springs?
yeah, definitely. Don't you remember it? Because I got a lot of time to go. Well, I went to P-30, 51. So
Out of
maybe
there.
you were down.
I could have been down.
Officers school. You had to go to officers school.
Well, I had to go to Brownsville.
In Brownsville. But they kept it very quiet. They told me not to say anything about it, but we definitely got that, or I probably would have been in big trouble. And nobody I knew found it, and then they showed it to us.
Gee.
But the FBI said, we do get these things. Just
Probably
don't say
just
anything about it,
send
but
this
from now
around.
on, maybe you'd be interested in reporting anything you see. So this is really funny. For quite a while, I had this job of sending postcards back to Aunt Mary, who was in the FBI, say, and just say everything is fine. Well, fortunately, nothing happened in Palm Springs, so I always said everything's fine. But I did know that went on because they took me then into their confidence and said this, but it's scary to have something that big just galloping down there.
We're not going to spend the night, are we?
We might.
Yeah, we always have something to tell. But that was the only really, well, I don't know, I had a few other things, but
That was my worst
you
one.
gotta get out of
Oh,
it.
no, I turned that stairman over.
You
and-
did something, yes you did,
Blind.
that's
Tell me
right.
about that.
Yeah, turned, she was hanging upside down.
All right,
You're
those are,
crying.
Stearman is the
Yeah.
primary trainer, and
Mhm.
out of Dallas, and we pick them up in Wichita, and take them all the way out to the West Coast, Lancaster,
Biplane.
yeah. And it's a long flight in an open cockpit in the middle of December.
Mhm.
And I'd left Phoenix with oh, you know my buddy. I can't say her name. Anyway,
Hello.
Gail.
Oh, good.
Gail. And so we both landed at Blythe. She landed ahead of me, and I saw her turn off. Well, I was taxiing way too fast, but I was ready to turn off after all that coffee in Phoenix. And I slammed the brakes on as I started the turn, and over I went upside down. I'm hanging upside down. So now,
Harsh.
but what made me think to do it? As I went over, I cut the switch, and the propeller stayed horizontal. It was not damaged. There was no damage. There was no damage. Just the upper wings had been scraped, and they fixed that.
Yeah.
So now Gail jumps out. She shut hers off and ran back. She said, "I got to get you out of here. The gasoline is in the wing tank." And she said, "This will catch on fire." So she reached up, undid my belt, and I fell on my head.
I remember
So
that.
now
Yeah,
the
that's
ambulance
true,
came.
that's
I'm
true.
bleeding. I'd fallen out of my head. So that's why I'm the way I am.
I knew that.
You
That's
knew
right.
that.
I knew that. Yeah, I remember that well. Yeah.
And I had said before I left, because I had been successful with those steermen, and
Yeah.
the minute anybody ground looked, they'd take them out.
Oh.
And this
It
was
was a
my
disgrace.
fifth one. And I said, "I'm tired of flying these things. What do I have to do? Turn one over?"
And you did. Absolutely.
But they took me out of them.
That's right. She's not safe. Some
Yeah,
things
we-
did happen, yes.
So,
That was Dallas, and
what-
then I went to Pursuit.
Then you went to Pursuit,
Yeah.
that's right.
so what year did you guys come here to Palm Springs then?
Spring of '44.
I came the first time.
You went through school here,
Well, before that, I was here.
were you?
I've been here 3 times.
Yeah.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
I sent me in November '43 because they were going to have an all pursuit squadron. Well, I don't know what happened.
What was here then when you first came?
It was a ferry group.
It was ferry, but they were not. They were in a great state of flux. They were moving. Everybody was moving from somewhere
Uh-huh.
to somewhere else.
They were
So-
changing the Pursuit school to
They-
Brownsville. They were doing.
Mm-hmm. And so they didn't know what to do with us because the school had already trained some men and they had gone on. And so we just sort of hung around. We had a wonderful time. It was kind of early fall. We went swimming, took pleasure in all
See,
the
now
great
this is fall
Palm
of
Springs
43
things to do.
That she was doing all this.
Yeah.
And so they finally said, well, I think we're going to move the school somewhere. Now, this is before, going here. So they sent me to Long Beach. And then I had to fly on the B-17s, which wasn't at all what I wanted to do, but it was interesting.
You flew what they told you to.
You did what they told you.
So you flew the B-17?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. I was co-pilot, but I always had this wonderful older man who said, I'm pretty old and I have a heart attack.
He's
I want you to know
probably
exactly
38.
what to do. So he was a dear, and he and his wife have been our family friends since then. But that was an interesting time because you saw a entirely different kind of flying. But I still wanted the pursuit, so I begged to go back to Dallas. So I got back to
you got
Dallas
back to
again.
Dallas. That's when I knew you.
Yeah, that's when you knew me, because that's when you were here. So then the second time I came out was to go to the pursuit school here, which I was the only girl, you could tell by that picture, in that whole group of men, and they couldn't have been nicer because it was so, well, a big tragedy happened the first day. I was telling the other chap about that. You sort of pick out with a group of people, you could easily pick out a leader somehow, and there was this one that was just an excellent, more mature young man than the rest, and he was killed. And we never could figure out what happened. He just went straight in, and we think it might have been a canopy sunstroke or something like that, because there was no collision. So that night was very interesting in Palm Springs. it was full of drunken would-be pilots who were trying to get their nerve up to stay in the school because it just hit
There
everybody
wasn't
so
any reason
hard.
for it.
No reason, and everybody was afraid of these high-powered, they called them,
What-
as there
what-
was compared to the 6.
What was he flying?
The P-47, the big one,
Where is it?
was it 57? No, it was a 47. And it was a safe airplane. The whole thing didn't make sense. So the next day, I remember that we were just going out in town, taking care of them, you know, saying, come on, get home, don't let anybody see you, you're drunk, the whole class practically.
Yeah.
And so the next time the instructor said, I know what'll make them fly. Let's get the girl to fly right now. So I flew, and then they lined up. Nobody was going to
Couldn't
not
let a girl
go.
do that.
As they said, they wanted to transfer. They didn't want to be in this dangerous thing where the sun could kill
I changed
you.
my mind. I don't want to be
Yeah.
a pursuit
Oh, it was a funny time.
Huh.
But it was certainly so
It was
Palm
funny. I think
Springsy.
whenever we were in a class,
Yeah.
it boned up. You had to be better than the girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really were very nice.
They
I
were
think
nice.
that once they found out we did the same thing, we never had any trouble. We heard rumors of people,
No.
but we didn't.
Being
They
the desert
adopted you.
here, I know the air currents, and I mean, it's different than most places. Did you find?
It was so bumpy in the afternoon in the back of a BT-13
It was hot.
trying to do instruments. I thought
Oh.
I never would get through instruments.
Yeah, that's true. We were in a hotter place yet. You were down there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's bad enough
Yeah.
here. And touch
No.
the airplane. Psst.
No, I-
Yeah, iron, you know.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. So they had a lot of men in the command.
Oh, yeah.
You guys,
They were all
did you,
men.
and you
Very
knew them
much
pretty well.
outnumbered.
Oh, yeah.
We have 2 that are here that are volunteers. They're not here today.
They had been ferry pilots?
They were here in Palm Springs, and one's name was Don Wilkinson, and the other was Dalton Sedgemore.
Did we
Oh, I
meet-
know Sedge.
You know
did we meet
Sedge?
one
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
them?
Were they pilots?
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Yeah, they were here. Sedge is usually
I've
here on
I've
Fridays.
kept in touch with Sedge.
Sedge,
That's,
okay. And
that's,
he and Don, in fact, Don was Sedge's instructor
Oh,
here at
okay.
Palm Springs
yeah,
initially.
we met them when we.
Oh, yeah. Well, we
Sedge
came
was
there.
one of the guys that.
Oh, he
with-
was one
with
of
the
them?
hook, yeah.
Yeah,
So
they-
he's the one I've kept in touch with, and he's the one that set this all up.
Oh, well, that's great. Okay, good.
So that's where we are.
Yeah.
Well, we could go on and on, but
Yeah,
I.
we have,
Well,
you
I-
know,
I-
one thing
I-
leads
That's
to
enough.
another, to
No,
another,
it's
to
not enough.
another.
No, it's not enough. No, I want to know. So that was your first time, though. So, but when you first met, you had not met each other prior
Oh,
to that.
we knew each other no, but
We-
when you came back to Dallas,
Yeah.
then I got to know you. And Bird was my first flight leader when I, out of Sweetwater, when I delivered those BT-9s.
Oh,
BT-9s, have you ever heard of those?
Mhm.
They were so obsolete and so dangerous, the boys refused to fly them to the junkyard. So
we did.
we did.
We didn't do anything to.
Tell us a little bit about, since we all live here in Palm Springs, what the town was like then, and
Ah,
some of the
yeah,
things you
wonderful.
did.
It was
and so-
wonderful. It was so small.
It was one, well, of course, you know, I was never really movie struck, but every movie star you ever heard
Yeah.
from lived
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And they were so nice to us.
Yeah.
They thought we were wonderful, and they were very kind. And
We weren't home that much,
It's a
but when we
wonderful-
were home, we'd downtown for
well,
drinks
it's a
and
little,
dinner
little place, little tiny place we liked to eat.
that we liked to eat.
You know, it's very famous at the day. But then there were people with these lovely mansions, and they would invite us to come and have a swim or something. It was a small town.
It was darling.
Much smaller than it is
Yeah.
now. We
I'd
met
get
some
lost
very
now.
interesting people.
They were,
Some we got to know a lot later.
and I liked it best when bullocks would have their sail.
Now, I don't remember boys having a sail or carrying.
I just got rid of that jacket, I think. I gave away my WASP jacket.
Well, here in the summer, it was rough.
It
And
was
what
hot.
I did when I was here in that summer, we rented a house from, you know, what do you call them that come down here in the winter only?
Oh, the
They had a
snowbirds.
beautiful little house, yes, because it was really pretty hot to be in the
Well,
barracks.
then remember Jackie came over to see us, and she said, you girls have to have desert coolers, and she had some installed for us.
I went down and got
You
them.
went
I
down and got
remember.
them, but Jackie
Oh,
took
tell them
them.
about the Jeep. We had a
What
Jeep.
Well, we had to get to the flight line, and there weren't very many
This is
cars.
just Viv and I now. See, we're the only two to come set up this.
Right, and we're
Yeah.
going to have an active squadron, and
And our squadron's way down by the entrance. All the others
the
are close.
farthest from
We
operations.
couldn't walk.
So we
had
get a
Jeep.
call. How many pilots do you have, and how to get them down to the flight line?
So we got a Jeep.
And
And then
we
it got
take
kidnapped.
instructions. We had to take instructions
Oh,
to
yeah,
drive
that's
it.
right. But then people would borrow it, so we decided we'd fix them. So we got some craton. We put up craton curtains. Nobody touched that Jeep. Not one of the men
It's
dared
belonged to the
touch it.
Jeep. The girls.
Didn't have to paint it pink though, huh?
The girls.
There's another thing happened here that was very unusual. We got to be good friends with the WACs.
Yeah, they lived here with us.
They were just great. They were over on the other side of the main thing. And I kept up with what's her name, Lundy, for the longest time after, too. Met her in England later after the war. And it was really fun seeing how they operated. And they had it pretty tough, because they couldn't get away in hot weather like we could.
Yeah, we
How many girls did you end up with then when you got your squadron together?
The 11 of us are that final
11
picture.
are there, and I don't think we were
Weren't
ever
we-
more than 20.
I was going to say 20, 24. And then some people just didn't like it after all, and decided this was not, and quit.
I don't want to bring up a bad
Let's
note,
don't
but
talk
there's
about
one, no, there's one statistic I think is interesting. We had 38 killed in line of duty.
Yeah.
And considering they were just about 1,000 of us that ever went
38
in,
were killed.
that's much more than any of the other women organizations.
Yeah.
Even my wonderful Lady Marines in my life had anything like that, because ours was a hazardous duty.
Oh,
So that's why it kind of hurt to be still considered civilians.
Yeah, and we were not made veterans, until 1978.
No benefits.
You knew that, didn't you?
We took up a collection to bury the kids that were killed. They had nothing.
If their mom,
Well, you weren't part of the Air Force then?
no,
We were
we
civilians.
were civilians.
Oh.
And that was not rectified till the 70s.
78.
Was it 78? Then it was a little late for schooling.
That's true. I'd have gone back to GI
Veterans-
Bill.
That's right.
Oh, so
do
you
that.
weren't eligible for that?
No.
No, we get a flag and
We didn't. Well, now we get a flag on our coffin since we're veterans.
but it.
And in fact, some of the girls, their mothers couldn't afford to bring the body home. We take up collections.
We did. It was just ridiculous, but it was such a small group, that really didn't have all that
What they
power.
just 1,074 is the figure in total WASP.
I want you, while I've got thinking about it, each of you take your picture here and kind of hold it in front of you, and so I can.
Oh, that is almost criminal, isn't it? 60 years later.
Look at this.
That's
Oh,
right.
I
So how
want
many
to
years
look.
later?
About 60, I think.
I think this is cool.
Oh,
I didn't think much of that at the time either. Yours is great. Look at that
Well,
happy smile.
Well, I thought yours looked pretty good. Okay.
Okay, let me go over here and let's get to.
Oh, here's that.
Very nice.
Now, I think I didn't put my cap on because it messed up my hair.
I didn't wear a cap.
We didn't really.
No.
Well, you put it on for the picture,
We had to have
obviously.
earphones, so that
Okay, and here,
wouldn't
take this magazine. Tell me a little bit about this girl here now.
This is Shirley Slade Tier. Shirley was a classmate of mine, and she flew B-26s. She went to Dallas when I did. When my class graduated, there were at least 15 of us that reported to Dallas. I could name them if I had all afternoon. I could think of all of them. And Shirley was one of them. Then she left Dallas to go to B-26 training and flew those.
She did. Good for her.
And she kept on flying, and her son was so fascinated with the WASP that he went to the Tucson reunion last August and met me there, and he was enchanted to find that he'd found a classmate of his mother's, and he's now
Oh.
visiting me out in San Diego.
That is, yeah, that's great.
In fact, I set this visit up so that he could come over and see what I was
That's
doing.
great.
Okay, yeah.
She,
When
I
did
love the
she
braids.
die?
Last year.
Oh.
Last year.
Did you fly B-26?
I did not fly B-26.
Oh.
She did.
I
She
did.
Did you?
Yeah, that's why I go to their, they're still alive. Some of these men's groups really stay with it. They get so patriotic.
Thank you
about
very
it.
much.
Oh, okay, well, we're not done yet. We're not, but we're going to take a break because I'm going to change my film here
Oh, my
right now.
goodness.
So,
we'll get another drink of water.
Is it warm?
Yeah.
Do it anymore.
So she said, I can't just sit here and do nothing. I'm tired of reading. Let's go to the department store. If you buy yarn, they'll teach you to knit. And so we did. We sat there and learned to knit. And this lady, and we're in our uniforms. You didn't have room in a 51 to carry anything.
Yeah.
You were lucky
Pair
to
of shoes.
a clean underwear and a clean shirt. And so we sat there, and she said, "What are you girls? Taxi drivers?" And we said, "Yeah."
so did you finish up your time in the service here in Palm Springs?
Yep.
Is that where you
That's a
got
picture
out?
I want you to
That's
have.
where we
That's
both
a picture that I want you to have.
Yes.
retired from.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. And so then where did you go from there?
Home.
Well, slowly. You got out of it early. That wasn't right. I had to sign off all those
You
things that
had
you
to
and
get
I
rid of the
signed.
barracks stuff.
I had all the furniture, all the Jeep, everything was in my name. So I had Christmas here.
No, I went home.
I feel real sorry for myself. No, it was really rather sort of fun. But then, see, Ray hadn't come back yet. Did you really get married that right away?
No, I didn't get married. I was a stewardess.
Oh, that's right. So they had all gone, and I was here for a while, but I went home slowly back to New York, and that's where I did a lot of the writing you're talking about. It's because I got on the magazine staff. They once offered me the job, believe it or not, of being editor of Life. And so,
Oh, gosh,
no,
really?
but listen, what happened? So I had a cousin that was very well known. He worked there, and I said, "What do they mean?" He said, "They mean they'll hire you for a month, and the minute the men come back, you're out of there. Don't take the job." So I knew enough then.
So what job did you take then?
I just did freelance writing, and that's when I got out the 6 little booklets about different aspects of flying, like navigation, engines, rules and regulations, and that sort of thing. And I was paid for that pretty well enough to live on New York for a while.
Well, who published it? Who had you do it?
American Airlines actually were behind publishing
I
that.
knew that.
Yes. I've still got those 6 books. Want to read them?
Yeah.
They'll be all outdated now, but a lot of work went into that because we had to look up all the regulations, and then of course I was really at home with navigation because I could go down to Coast Survey and they had to
Absolutely.
get all the maps,
Absolutely.
which my father had to do. It was a hard job. It was good, but then that led to wanting to do more. So you remember Mademoiselle magazine?
Mhm.
I wanted that more than anything. I just loved it.
I like that man.
So I wrote for them, but they couldn't hire me at the time, no. So that's when I was selling handkerchiefs or bottle of talent, anything. But writing just was part of it all, too.
And it's about the time you got married then in 1940s?
When I came home, yeah, then we got married, and then it was Navy life and children.
Had you and your husband been corresponding a lot
Oh,
during
yes.
the war and everything?
And
tell us-
me and a few other 100 people, because I grew up in the service, remember?
Yes.
And you can't just go marry when there's still some of them out there thinking, "Oh, poor dears, I wonder what they'll think. I better wait till they get home."
And he was in the Navy?
Yes.
And what was he on a ship or what?
Yeah, he was flying the wounded back and forth. He was flying the big planes,
Oh, he was.
stationed in Guam,
No.
which is a funny place. It's where my son is now.
So you got married, and did he get out of the service then too?
He stayed in. No, well, let's see. We were in and out. We were out. He was teaching. Then the other war came. You know, that Korean War.
Yes.
Back in you go. So then we were back in the Navy, and then we were living in Hawaii. Real tough. So that's where I had my first 2 children, and then we stayed with them for a while. No, we were the Navy again, that's right. So then after he got out of the Navy, then Lockheed wanted him. So he was test pilot for Lockheed until he retired. We kept up the Navy on the side. it's all
So
been
He
fine.
stayed Naval Reserve, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's retired.
And so then, when the children were old enough that I thought, well, they'd not be too horrified if I got killed, we took up flying again. And we didn't think it was right for both of us to be flying at one time because we weren't near family. Most family were back east too. how Maryland is. And so
And where were you living most of the time then?
now we're almost all in California.
Where in California?
Well, it was
Well, you-
San Fernando Valley, and then we moved up to New Orleans, a quaint little town. Now it is Santa Clarita. It's no longer quaint. It's really packed, but we've loved it. It's been good for the kids.
So while you were raising your kids, did you work at all? Still do a lot of writing, or?
Yes, mostly that, yes. Had regular writing jobs, but it was, I don't think you leave 4 children 2 years apart very easily when you're in a new place. There weren't any children around. There weren't much around at that time. And I was making something from the writing, not much. Writers don't get.
So Vivian, what did you do when you got out then?
The first thing I did was go home.
You were stewardess.
The first thing I did was, I went home to Fullerton.
This one also is a great actress. She loves it, and she's
I'm
good.
running a theater now.
Dance theaters.
A shy girl like her.
And then a good friend of the family was up at the state legislature, and he came by and he said, "I bet you are bored to death." And I said, like to do family friends, he's not my uncle. I said, "Uncle Sam, I could just die." And he said, "Well, there are a few comps to being in the legislature. Come on up and I'll give you a job." So I loved it. There I was sitting, and there was assistant librarian where you follow the bill each day.
Oh yeah.
And then I had already applied to American Airlines, so I was thinking seriously of staying in this secretarial work. I wasn't any good, but I sure was having a good time. And American called me. So I took the night train down, was interviewed with about 100 more, and in those days you had to be a certain height and weight and unmarried and age, and that's that. And after the interview they said, "You're the only one we hired today, but don't tell the other girls out there." I thought I was Miss America. So then I did go
You
with
couldn't be
American.
married?
You could not be married.
And it had to be pretty easy to look at too, I would think.
Certain height. We all look like identical wax models. The graduation picture. So I went back and flew with American for a year and a half. And
What was the training? I mean, it's
A
so
stewardess training?
different now. Yeah, for a stewardess. Like,
it was 6 weeks, and you were to learn every code for each of the cities. Well, I already knew all that stuff. I'd been flying, and you had to know the locations. So
but I mean, as far
Did
as
you need any medical training?
not then. No,
you know,
no longer.
how does as far as serving them meals and all this kind of, that must have been kind of new for you too.
Well, when they put those scrambled eggs on in the morning and you'd lift it, and that sulfur would hit you in the face, you'd almost. There weren't any microwaves, and they put it on the hot buffet food in buffet trays. And there were only 21 passengers on that DC-3. Then I did fly DC-4s, and then there were 54, and there were 2 stewardesses. I only flew for a year and a half.
But I mean, you really pampered the passengers.
You
didn't
were their hostess, and you kept your jacket on and your cap, and your hair was an inch above your collar. Look at her now.
Did you ever have any difficult ones? Ones that you like to throw overboard?
No, they're all very, very pleasant.
People were nicer in those days.
Well, when you have that many people to take care of now, those poor kids,
Oh,
my God, what are there, 150 people on those airplanes? And even the DC-4, there were 2 of us, and there were 54 passengers then. And I love this story. But we were so identical that this one guy called me over again. No, he called BJ over again, and he said, "I just told that other girl this story." And she said, "Would you get up that aisle? I'm so sick of listening to his story."
You ever have any passenger that were just petrified to
No.
fly that you never
No.
gave you a bit? It was difficult.
No,
to-
never really. Lot of crying, sick babies, the poor little things, and of course,
No
remember that
unpressurized.
no pressure, and those little ears. You can imagine how they felt, and they just cried. But that crying was better than would break it. Yeah, so no. I did have kind of an exciting thing. This still in a C-47 DC-3. We were in Phoenix one night. Oh, and we had the Mexico City flight coming back from. The Mexico City only came through El Paso, then to Los Angeles. and we'd pick them up in El Paso and come home. Well, the left engine caught fire. And I knew he'd overprimed it. Now the Mexicans out in the front row, oh God, they panicked, and I said, everybody sit down. And they did. And then I walked up the aisle and I said, it'll be out in a minute, he's just overprimed it. Well, I go back and everybody just as calm, the ramp agent opens the door and I said, we're fine. I got a letter of commendation. But I knew what he had done.
Well, because just the normal stewardess probably wouldn't have had any idea.
Wouldn't have had any idea that he'd overprimed the engine and gotten ready to vacate. And
Yeah.
so then the captain called me up and he said, thanks, kid.
So how long were you a stewardess then?
A year and a half.
Was it that long? I didn't know that.
Year and a half.
And then what did you do after that?
Well, this naval pilot came home and looked me up.
Maybe again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd remember him as kind of a
You went to
short,
school with him.
yeah, but he was short and fat
Would you go to school together, or what? How did you know him?
all my life.
How did you know him?
All my life.
Oh, really?
Mm. But he was a short little blonde, and I like tall brunettes, and we'd never dated, and he was short. Well, my gosh, I get this phone call, and I said, Howard Eddie, and we hadn't seen each other in 7 years. We'd been in CPT together.
Yeah, that's right.
And he said he'd like to take me out, and I agreed. So then that was to be the following Saturday. He said, I've been thinking about this the whole time on the Pacific. We're going to a football game, we're going to dinner, we're going to dance. That's all I've thought about, and I'm so glad you're free. And then he called me on Friday. He says, I'm out here at the airport with my sister and my buddy. He's trying to get a flight out. Do you want to ride home? Because we all lived in Fullerton. I was staying out our stewardess house was out in Burbank, in North Hollywood, actually, just down the street from Bob Hope. That's really where we lived. So I thought, oh God, Howard Eddie, and I was still in my uniform. I got to find some flat shoes. I don't have any flat shoes. Then I got to get out of this uniform, and the doorbell rang. God, there he is in that Navy uniform.
Had he gotten any taller?
He got told.
He got that. But where's some flat shoes? I wore 4-inch heels if I had mine. Didn't you
Yep,
do too?
yep, we all did.
What was he flying out in the Pacific?
He's a fighter pilot. The Corsair is known as he's a tail hooker.
Was he on the carriers?
All the carriers. So that's and now
That's
he
funny. We both married
Yeah,
Navy,
you
both married pilots.
married pilots.
And it seems to work.
And then 25 years later, we started flying again too. Never integrated. But I
We
got a
started
letter from
flying.
Jackie Cochran sent us letters, and she said, "Come on down to ranch, and
yeah.
I'll buy your dinner."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
What's the 99ers? Were you
okay,
involved
that
with
number
that?
really was.
Well, yes. It was because, I don't know what the reason was, but by the time that it started, they could only find 99 women that had flight licenses. And that would have to be, it's before our time that it began, although Betty was one, wasn't she?
Yeah.
But most of them were, what was the year? 20-something. Do you remember the year? I just wrote something about it, but it's gone now. But by the time we came along, when I got before the war, that was the first thing you wanted to do, was join the 99s. It was an honor to be one.
And you were?
So, oops, yeah, so I did, and I've never regretted it. There's some great people, and there's so many of them now that it isn't the same feeling of the comradeship that we had in the beginning. But most of the ones that you knew, besides Jackie, the one that Ruth, what was Ruth's name? They were really nice people, but they were older. And I think our age limit for WASP was 35 because Jackie was 35. Wasn't that the reason? I think.
Something like that.
So a lot of them are, in their 40s. So the ones that originally started were a little bit too old, except for Betty Gillis, who'd been in the WASP part. And they were an interesting group because they...
Jackie was 99?
Yeah, sure she was.
Yeah,
But I loved the way she had the
Something
25th reunion here. Remember that?
Mhm,
And we all
mhm.
came. And I had not seen any WASP. Kept in touch with a couple of buddies. And I said, I want to go to that, Howard. And he said, we'll go if you'll fly in.
That's right, you flew in.
Remember?
Yeah.
And so he went out and got himself checked out in a small airplane. He's now retiring with the Boeing company.
Yeah,
Or,
I
yeah.
remember that.
And so he got himself checked out in the airplane, came home and got me, and he took me over to SeaTac, and he said, land it. And I had not flown for 25 years. I landed it.
Well, then you started flying again.
So, and then he thought it was so much fun to
You
fly.
came up to
Yeah, and
visit
then we
me
bought
'cause something was
airplanes.
wrong with your eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got there.
Yeah. So then we bought airplanes, and we just got rid of
Yeah,
our
we did
last one
too.
3 years ago. We've been flying on it ever since.
So you were living in Seattle then?
After the
Yeah.
Navy. After the Navy.
Oh, okay. Well, let's back up a little bit.
He
Okay.
retired from the Navy.
Okay, you met this
Well,
tall
this
guy that
gorgeous
used to be
thing,
short.
yeah.
And then what happened?
We got married. And then,
Okay.
Navy. Oh, yeah.
He
Oh,
was
28
career Navy
Yeah.
then? Oh,
Career
I see.
Navy, yeah. Career Navy.
So where were some of the places you were stationed at?
Washington, D.C. twice.
Oh, we weren't there.
And Hawaii.
Hawaii.
And San Francisco and San Diego, Coronado. And that's where we live now. Coronado.
Oh, yeah. And how many children do you have?
3 outstanding women.
And what are their names?
Joanne's the oldest, and then Lynn is middle child, and Lisbeth is a sergeant in the Seattle Police Force.
Oh, wow. Any grandchildren?
5 grandkids and 2 great.
Whoa.
Oh, well, you're ahead of me. I don't know how you did that.
They are the cutest things of 2 greats.
Oh,
Uh,
tell me.
well, my little boy Lancey is 2, and Lillian, isn't that cute? Old-fashioned name. Lillian is 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Well, congratulations.
How many children do you have, Mary Lou?
I have 4. Boy, girl, boy, girl.
And what are their names?
And Steve, Denise, Jim, Michelle. See, we got the 2 Frenchmen in there. Jim is, I don't know, he was in Jordan a little while ago, and he called last night, and now he's in Saipan again. He wanders around like an expat, teaching English as a second language, because his wife's with UN, so he does that. I was glad to see him out of Jordan now, because he's
Yeah.
a target. He is so American looking.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah. And then Steve teaches high school and swims a lot, and he's local, so I see him a lot. My 2 daughters are also local. And only one of the 4 gave me grandchildren. She's given me 4 and a stepchild. And since we were married late in life, she was married late in life. Seems like everybody of my age is talking about their grandchild, and I'm talking about my own child. Keeps you young, I guess.
Yeah. So where do you live now?
We live in Newhall or Santa Clarita. They've
Okay.
changed our name on us.
Up by where Magic Mountain is?
Yes, that's one way to tell it. We moved there before. We were flying around, actually. We thought it looked kind of nice. So
Yeah.
we said, well, let's go out and look at that.
It's
So
a
we
pretty
bought
area.
3 acres, and
Goodbye.
then we built. It was a good thing to do. And so it's
And Vivian, you live, where do you
In
live?
Coronado.
Coronado. I was stationed at North Island for 2
You were?
years.
Don't you love it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We
I
have a
did too.
daughter that lives in Solana Beach, so we
Oh,
go down there
wonderful.
quite a bit.
You know what I love? We can fly space available out of there. There it
She's
is,
always
10 minutes.
going.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
10 minutes from our
Always
front
going
door.
somewhere.
So did you two keep pretty well in contact with each other after you
It
left
was
the
as well as
service?
it should have been, because I don't know why. We never lost track.
No,
but
we never
could have
lost
been
track then.
closer. We're all moving a lot, you know, so you get
Well,
the
in Navy,
Christmas
honey, we
cards,
did
yeah.
the best we could and always
And we
knew.
weren't
Yeah.
stationed there, but we knew where we were.
Always knew where
We
the
knew
other
where we were.
and Lola.
Yes,
There's certain of your buddies that you just don't lose.
And how often do you get into Palm Springs here these nowadays?
Well, we came over for the,
yeah.
not too often. I have an aunt and uncle who live in Borrego, so when we do
Yeah.
desert,
Yeah.
midwinter desert, we go to Borrego.
Well, we have a pop-up van, which is great for sleeping in. We come down to Lake Dewey a lot.
Oh,
Just love it, just to get away from things, so we like to do that. Kind of have been a remiss this year.
When we had the airplane, we'd be over here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that too.
We decided it was time to hang it up.
I think, did somebody say, have a child that flies too?
Oh,
Or,
my grandson does.
or your grandson, yeah.
No, mine don't fly. Well, most of them had kind of eye trouble too, you know, and that would slow it up. And then I took them all for a ride, and I think I scared them. I don't know. I haven't been able to figure it out yet. I thought it was a lot of fun to do aerobatics.
So for both of you, flying just sort of came naturally for you, or was there any
Nothing
difficult?
natural about flying. You
No.
can't just go.
But I mean, it's more natural for some people than
Well,
others.
I loved it. It wasn't hard.
It was something you wanted.
Yeah.
And that made the
Yeah,
difference.
it wasn't.
Wanted enough to, you know, put everything else aside, put all your money into it, because the CPT only took you so far,
That's
and you
right.
had to go further.
That's right. I couldn't believe that I was going to be paid to fly.
Uh-huh.
Couldn't believe it, instead of having to wait on tables at knots to save money.
It's a wonderful feeling to kind of get up there in the air, away from everything, and look down all those poor
And by
people.
yourself.
By yourself. I think that's what we like too. I didn't much care for being part of a crew like the
I didn't either.
B-17,
I didn't either. No.
B-26,
We're fighter pilots.
B-25. I think so. Because you always feel like you have to take care of somebody
Yeah.
else. And sometimes you have to make a decision that could go either way.
You don't want to talk to anybody about it. You're
Yeah,
fine.
it would go
Yeah.
either way. It might work, it might not work.
We had Wally Schirra
Mhm.
at
Yeah,
our
I heard you
program
did.
Saturday. It was really neat. I've got a videotape of it. But he said that some people go up in space because they want to learn about this or that. He said he and a lot went up just because he likes to fly.
There we
Just
are.
a different place
That's
to fly
exactly.
to.
Mhm.
No, that's exactly.
Yeah.
No, I've enjoyed, my Chris has his private, and he's working on an instrument rating, and I've flown with him twice, and of course, what's he got now, 75 hours, something like that. And he took me up the coast and landed at Palomar. He said, we'll do some touch and goes, and he's a lot of radio work. Now, that's another thing. When we learned to fly, there wasn't so much stuff, but he handled it very, very well, and on the way back down, he says, Grandma, did you like that? And I said, Chris, that's great. He said, I knew you wouldn't be scared.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, I love that.
Well, ladies, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming. I tell you what, we're going to wrap this part up, and then we'll go down by the planes down in the hangar, and I'll take the camera down. We'll talk a little bit about the planes that you flew.
Oh, gosh.
Okay? All right?
All right. Jane H., who is that?
Okay. Now, we were just looking at this row of P-51s. Tell us a little bit about that, Vivian.
One of us probably helped fly, or we flew one over from Los Angeles, and they're there lined up, ready to go to Newark.
Yeah, I'll be darned.
And I don't know, that looks like some boy.
Yeah. Now, there's one looking down. Remember this in 1943? Is that the way Tarquins looked then?
Yeah, that's exactly the way it looks. Way down there.
No, be at the very end.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's Palm Springs Tower, 21st
Yeah.
Ferry Command,
Yeah, I tried calling
43.
him twice in the hospital, but he wasn't picking up. So I thought maybe he's asleep or something. Yeah.
This Lockheed Electra here, Vivian, right there. Isn't that the kind that Amelia
Amelia.
was flying when she was lost?
Yeah, she had her own, yeah.
Did you ever been in one of those, an Electra?
I think I have, but I haven't flown one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a P-38.
Now this is, here's a command base here in 43. Does that look familiar? Right,
40.
right in front of you. There you go.
21st Ferry Command. That was 43. That's the way it looked when we were here in 44.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were. This is way down at the other end. Yep. Now these.
I did indeed. The 38s.
Oh, let me see that.
And they go back to wartime too. Poor race with all those things.
It's cute.
Yeah, that was our base. Where you going?
Well, you were here in 43, weren't you?
You're a Navy pilot? It's not short.
Okay.
Oh, you're the one she's at.
Because 47 earlier, and she says, wasn't that big when I flew.
I know. She's-
Here it is.
There's your P-51.
It was delivered in 45. We were already kicked out. We were home.
Tell me some of the characteristics about the P-51 here that you remember.
Well, it sounded like it was going to explode when you started it.
Oh, really?
Remember all the popping and cracking? That's what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember not being able to see when
You
you're
can't see.
taxiing out, so you have to S-turn
Yeah.
all along
Yeah.
the road.
So how did you get into the plane?
With difficulty.
Well, let's walk around there and see. Show us.
Yeah, they have a handhold there.
There was a ladder. Mary, how did we get in?
Wait, what?
How did we get in?
There's a hand grip here.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it was. It was here?
It was there, and you
Yeah.
stepped on.
Step.
Not on it.
We did it. We did it.
Yeah, yeah, I think he could just about still do it. Really.
Yeah, I think we both are trying.
But you were happy to do it. You're beautiful.
Isn't that
Isn't that
Is it,
gorgeous?
yeah.
The one that surprises me, though, is how big the P-47
Yeah,
is.
right here.
I
Yeah,
can't believe it didn't seem that
the big when you flew it. Yeah.
It's huge.
It's a funny thing. That particular plane has the most loyal ex-pilots of
Yeah,
any
they love
I've ever
it.
seen. They love it. They're still going strong. And they've started up the Western P-47 again. You've got to come. He lives up here.
Really?
Tom Glenn is
What do
his
they
name.
do?
They meet and talk. They don't
All I
fly
could,
much.
the first time I flew one down in Brownsville, they called me and the tower and said, "What does your gear read?" And I said, "It reads up." And I said, "Well, fly by the tower. Put it in down position. No, fly by the tower." They said, "One is down."
And
So they said, "Go around again. Put the gear in down position. Fly by the tower." I put it down. How does it read? It's down. You have two gears. Come in and make the best landing you know how. Can you imagine? This is my first time in
oh,
one.
you first.
My first time in one. And I may not have a gear. So I thought, oh, please, just don't drop it. And I really did grease it in. I was so proud of it. Then I looked up and all the fire trucks and the equipment, they were ready for me to burn up.
You showed that. I like this story. You said the P-47 has the most loyal. The
Oh, yes,
P-47
yes.
more than the P-51 or the P-38.
Well, you see,
I
that
held
was, it was in combat.
Right.
And that was such a strong plane. They could get just beat up and still bring it home.
Well, you know, we have
They wouldn't.
Right.
They wouldn't forgive
The
that much
P-51.
injury.
Yeah.
These were faster
Right.
and better fighters.
Right.
Yeah.
They
We've
had 2 inches.
Yeah,
But
we
this was
yeah,
hard.
couple of our veterans that I've talked to. One, he was flying in Indochina, and just a rifle bullet went into his coolant,
Yeah,
and he
blew his
had
coolant.
and he was
So
done.
good.
He was done.
That's it.
See, these
The-
are air cooled. This
These
is
were air
liquid.
cooled. They're the
Yeah,
best.
right. Yeah, and we have one guy that actually he survived 7 crashes in
Yeah.
combat in a P-47,
That's the story.
and usually we're shooting up trains and stuff would blow up, and he'd come back full of holes and all beat up and everything. And no, it was a strong
Yeah,
plane. Yeah,
that's the story.
yeah.
You
And-
live here in this area?
Yes.
There was Tom Glenn who
Yes.
just moved down here. Have you met him?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
We're going to have a reunion down here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
First part of December.
Yeah, yeah. We've
Come.
Okay, in December I'm on.
we've interviewed him like we did you guys today. Yeah, so
Oh,
we
good.
got
You're
it.
not going to have the reunion. yeah?
Well, that I didn't know really necessarily about that, but we have his story upstairs.
And we've thrown that little yellow parrot.
Your Piper Cub,
Yeah.
that's your first
Yeah.
one, yeah. Was the P-47 any more difficult to fly than the P-51, or
no,
they're
it
both
was
about the
easier.
same?
I think it was easy.
Easy.
Right.
It was easier. I didn't like
Was the
it
visit?
much.
Well, I don't know, it's clunky.
Now you said P-63 you liked?
Uh-huh.
Okay, like that. Mm-hmm. Had tricycle gear. It was a big version of the P-39.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so that's I know you were talking about the P-63. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is, a tricycle gear. Now, it was easy because there you
could-
are.
you
You
could
can
just
see over the
see
nose.
really good, yeah.
Where these guys, well, that 51, you couldn't see anything as a taxi.
Yeah.
You couldn't see anything.
This plane here was a trainer, a twin-engine trainer.
Yeah.
Did you ever see one, or did you ever fly one of these?
It's a Beechcraft, isn't it?
I think so. I forget what. AT-11. Yeah.
I've flown this.
You did. Oh.
I've flown that.
Uh-huh.
And of course, and then there's that Stearman that I turned over.
Oh, right.
Now you can see the upper wing. But by just, I don't know what made me do it, but I cut that switch and the prop, why it stopped parallel. But you see how
Yeah.
damaged it would have been?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Lucky it's
That's when I was hanging up by.
this is when she was hey.
There it is.
She turned one of these over. Where was this down in? Where'd you say, Blythe? Was it?
Attention visitors.
Yeah, she's really.
All the way out on the top wing. But fortunately, the prop had stopped. I told you I just
Oh, it stopped horizontal.
horizontal, so it wasn't damaged. And the only damage was the top arm.
And she said she was hanging upside down, and she had just followed her
My
friend
buddy-
and
My buddy just landed.
Yeah.
another girl, and she ran over and said, "You got to get out of. We got to get you out of here because it might catch on fire because of gas." And so she cut her.
She reached up and undid my belt, and I dropped on my head. You see, I'm in the cockpit, open, and hanging upside down, see? And she said, "I got to get you out of here," and I dropped down on my head.
Said she
So now I
was
had an injury, and it's all the
bleeding.
Fine up to then.
But these guys over at Blythe were just darling. They called Dallas and said, the pilot's fine, and we'll have her airplane fixed within a week. And we recommend that you let her continue her flight and stay and take her airplane. So I stayed in Blythe for a week and had fun, went to the dances every night and dinner.
That's what we do when we're younger and just, so.
And then I took it on up to Lancaster, wherever it was going. that was a ride. Oh, and then I loved it back in Dallas. They held a hearing. You know, how could you turn that airplane over? And I told them I had to go to the bathroom. Taxiing too fast. And those old guys on my board, oh, they probably are all 35, 36. They all laughed, and I never was punished for anything I did.
Well, see,
wow.
see,
Thank you very much.
It was fun.
yeah, it's
I
great seeing you.
will.
Good to see you. It's really good to meet you.
In fact, I'm going to go. Before you leave, I'm going to go get a couple a videotape for you to take of what we did upstairs. So you'll have. I'm going to get you a videotape that we did upstairs. You can take with you right now.
I can't wait to see it.
Oh, Ralph's gonna bring it here, I think.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot. Okay. Bye bye.
Okay.
I just closed the library though. I didn't lock it.
Okay. Well, it's all right. I've got my
I
keys.
just shut the lights off.
I got my
left the
keys
door
here.
open, you know, and I'm on for you.
Yeah.
So you determine whether you want to shut it.
Okay.
We got about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Better than this to be up here during the summer.
Yeah.
Sounded pretty interesting.
It was. It really was. Yeah, it was really good.
It's a wonderful feeling to kind of get up there in the air, away from everything, and look down all those cool
And by
people.
yourself.
By yourself. I think that's what we like to.
Brooke and I
I didn't
are
much care
our
for
display
being
chairman
on
now.
the crew.
I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
It's about putting their
I
pictures in and take people
We're
to
fighter
the
pilots.
that WASP one down
Oh,
there.
we should. Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna switch them
Mm-hmm.
as soon as they give us the pictures.
Yeah.
Where you guys from? Napa? Charles Shaw, $2 bottle of wine we have for 1,000 here. They're selling this Charles Shaw wine at Trader Joe's.
Oh,
They've sold 400,000 cases of it. $3
that's because the price is so extraordinary.
Because we all lived in Fullerton, I was staying out, our stewardess house was out in Burbank. In North Hollywood, actually, just down the street from Bob Hope. That's really where we lived. So I opened, I thought, oh, Howard Eddie.
Some winery up there that's kind of like a no-name, probably puts 50 different labels. Said that he had order for 100,000. $60 a ton, he got it for $20 a ton. Really took it out.
Sometimes you have to make a decision that it's only.
You don't want to talk to anybody about it. You're fine.
You go
Yeah.
either way. You find workable.
And they take it out of these Trader Joe's. 50 cases, 25, 30 cases at a time. They've been they're selling, I said, they've sold 400,000 cases. And they think it's not gonna be done by this time.
Wow.
I can't see them doing it next year. Next year we may not.
Next year we'll go back up to $85 a bottle.
Yeah, whatever, next year. That's why I think these people are buying 30, 40 cases at a
Exactly.
time.
We're water drinkers, so we don't.
I don't know, I couldn't tell you. Marlowe, Chardonnay, I couldn't tell you. Good, bad, indifferent. All vinegar. Okay, Dave, I'll let you take care of that. I'll keep the key down.
Okay.
Like I said, even though the lights are out, you'll have to put that little clicker on the door.
Okay.
If you want to get back in.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
So Dave went to get me a tape. You're so cute. Yeah, great story.
Aren't they though? Yeah, they really
thanks
are.
so much for
Did you want to write? Did you
Yeah,
want
I'd
to write
be-
that one up?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, unless would Betty mind? I'm gonna do it. I took pretty comprehensive notes. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll do it that way.
Okay. Here, let me give the meeting. Yeah. Here's the
The writer's
videotape.
tape,
The
okay.
videotape for you. So if you need that for
Yeah.
stuff too, that'll be good. And I should give you a copy of what's in the library.
Does it?
The information that I have that I replicated. Have all the
Yeah, they really got depth as far as benefits.
Okay, Mary, you too.
Thought he's got radar back there, and he can, and he's also got TV camera that he can see things. He says we got a flight of fighters at 4 o'clock high, and so the co-pilot got on the radio and he called Brown Shoe, which is the fleet, Mediterranean fleet down there, and says, "Do you have fighters up in the area?" And they said negative. And they said, "We got a flight of 4 up there." "Roger, we've got them on our radar down here." And so I told the co-pilot, and we can't break off that tanker. We got to have that fuel, because this mission's going to go, period. And so the tankers are watching him, both gunners are watching him, and the Navy's watching him down below. And all of a sudden, you know, our gunner says, "Pilot, I think they're getting in a position to make a pass at us." And about that time, we heard a strange voice come on the radio, and it's this Navy flight leader, and he's talking like an airline pilot does, you know, very calm and cool. Says, "Don't sweat it, guys. They make one pass, and all you're going to see is 4 fireballs. Period." And the co-pilot looked up, and sure enough, there was way up there was this flight of 4. They could just see the exhaust from them. No lights, just the exhaust.
The Navy planes?
The Navy planes. And the next thing, and then all of a sudden, we saw them go that way, and that flight of 4 disappeared. Boom, they were gone. We never did find out where they were from, but we knew that they weren't friendly. They weren't Spanish, they weren't French, they weren't British. So we figured they might have been from Libya, but we didn't know. So we landed from that, and then flew 3 more of those, but the rest of them, by that time, things had begun to smooth out, and we were glad when that was all over. Shortly after that, I moved to Beale Air Force Base, ran a lot of stuff out of there for my longest assignment of my career, and that was 5.5 years, or 4.5 years there. And then went to Kinchlow, from where I eventually retired, and from Kinchlow I went to ArcLight, which was a 7-month tour where we ran 56 missions over Vietnam. And this is the kind of thing we had: 108 750-pound bombs that we would drop. We dropped sometimes ground support for Marines a couple of times at night, radar dropping from 41,000 feet. We had just superb people over there. A lot of rather exciting events occurred, of course. They were all kind of anticlimactic after the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is my crew over there. And I still think they probably deserve credit for being the very finest crew, B-52 crew, that SAC may have ever had. And I can back that up with record after record. They were really, really good. We got back home, and by that time I had decided that my life had been exciting enough, and it was time to retire. But I had 2 other things to do before that time. Again, I was right back on alert again, and this shows me in my flight suit in the alert facility. This is the wing commander presenting me with one of the air medals that all of us received for our 56 missions over there. And this next one is a very special one to me, because the gentleman that's shaking my hand there is Lieutenant General Bruce K. Holloway, a former Flying Tiger, who was at that time the Commander-in-Chief of SAC. A very fine man, and one who I admired since I was a little kid because he was a Flying Tiger. And I was thrilled to death when, again, I was on alert, different time, what you see behind him here is the wing commander and the vice wing commander. He had flown from SAC headquarters to Kinchlow specifically to meet me. He was leaving to retire, and he said, I wonder if there are any more World War II fighter pilots in SAC. So he had one of his staff people, research personnel, and they came up with one name, and that was mine.
Wayne Mack.
And he says, we're going to go there and see him. And this is the picture that was taken. And when he walked in, I thought I was in real trouble. When they called me up there, of course I was in the alert facility commander at the time, but he called me up there, or the wing commander did. And this was the picture they took. This was not posed. This was a picture that was actually taken. And I thought, man, I've really done it now. And first thing he said is, I want to congratulate you. And I thought maybe it was just on a return from overseas. He said, I'm retiring, and when I do, you will be the sole remaining fighter pilot of World War II in all of Strategic Air Command.
Isn't that wonderful?
And, you know, that's the closest I've ever come to crying right there. That was a thrill for a 3-star general to take the time to do something like that. And afterwards I said, I think I can retire now. I did retire, went to one of my favorite things to do, and that was to go back to teaching school. I love to teach, as everybody here knows, but particularly I like music. And I was a music teacher by trade at that point. And I got wrapped up in a new kind of thing for my high school kids. It was called jazz choir. It was also called show choir. Jazz was all vocal jazz. And we began to incorporate both. Show choir involved choreography, complete dancing while they're singing these very complex things. It didn't take long for that to get off the ground. And the thing that was fortunate about all of it was that I got some of the prime athletes out of there to do all of our dancing for us. This is one of my favorites right here. This is a live shot taken on the stage at the Pioneer Theater in Reno of one of my very finest groups. It's kind of faded around the edges, and I like it because it is live. It shows the spotlight on these fine young people. And in there somewhere that I can't see because it's too dark is our own youngest daughter, who was a member of this particular group right here. And it was a real thrill. I have 2 more things I want to show here before we run out of time. And when I moved down the desert, I wanted to do some music things, and I got hired as the choral director for the West Coast Opera for about 6 years. And one of the musicals that we put on was The Sound of Music, and it was my job to train the young singers to be the Von Trapp family singers. This is a live shot taken at the McCollum Theater of these people right here. This little girl, this cute little girl on your left is Allison Lohman, who was one of them who was receiving consideration for nomination for an Academy Award for supporting actress in White Oleander. Just one of the neatest little girls I've ever met. This other little girl was on Broadway, the one next to her. Not as successfully, but that's a tough business. This was probably the most talented person of the whole bunch, this young man. Unfortunately, he was killed on a skateboard at the age of 20. And that was a sad story. And my last thing is my own indulgence in music, which has always been in a barbershop quartet. My first one is in college in 1948. This is our present quartet. And we have sung down here at the museum a few times to give the national anthem and a few of those other things. And we'll be in the annual show here in about 2.5 weeks or so.
What's your favorite song, Blair, with the Barbershoppers?
Oh, I have so many of them. It's hard for me to name one off. I like almost all of them. Each one has a special meaning, so I don't know that I really have a specific favorite. We just love barbershopping, and just had another nice rehearsal last night and getting ready for our show. So at any rate, that's where I am right now, and I like to close with one of my favorite quotes, and that comes from Jimmy Doolittle, the title of his book, "I Could Never Be That Lucky Again."
Blaine Mack, thank you very much for just a most outstanding interview. I've learned so much about this, and you've had many, many highlights in your career. And thanks for doing what you did for this country.
Well, thank you.